tell in her voice her enthusiasm and her emotion on this issue. So I encourage her to really elaborate on this really cool story in the community that she lives in and at a school that her kids go to. You can't get any more local and any more personal than that. So let's give a round of applause to Andy Cooper.
I just set my timer too. Thanks, Larry, for the idea. Brooke called me the other day and said, hey, will you tell a story? So this isn't a presentation. There are no words on my slides. There's a lot of good pictures. And this is a 4-year-long story. I think we've closed a lot of the chapters, and it has a happy ending. As a lot of you may know, I live here in DuPage County, and my husband and I have 3 boys. We are lucky enough to live in a neighborhood where we send our kids down the street to go to school. And this is a safe community with walkable streets. We often ride our bikes and walk to school each day, just like I did when I was a kid and probably a lot of you. Our oldest son started school as a kindergartner back in 2010. And on that first day, I noticed while walking into school that the campus was devoid of much of a landscape and there wasn't much life. There were sparse trees, and subsequently we lost those to emerald ash borer. So now there was really nothing. You get a gist of what I'm talking about. It's not very inspiring. In fact, it was one of the most uninteresting, uninspiring landscapes that I've seen. And here we were sending our child there to learn. So there was this contradictory environment. And as eager parents, we sent them there to learn every day. It was a little disappointing. So on top of all that, there was no shade. There was a sea of asphalt that would get super hot in the warm days. It would be icy on the cold days, slick and slippery. We also noticed the rundown condition of the play environment and later found out it was 25 years old. It had already been moved twice. A lot of the mechanics on it didn't function. Lopsided swings, rusty poles. You can picture what I'm talking about. So over the course of TJ's kindergarten year, we walked back and forth across a field. It was supposed to be a turf field. This isn't a detention basin. This is a turf field. And it would hold water after maybe even a 1-inch rain event. And ironically, there is a detention basin next to it. So it was always curious to me why the detention basin was dry and this turf field was wet. And then the water would drain, and several weeks after that, it would still be stagnant with mud. So every day I'd pick up my son from school, and he'd come out of school with mud splattered everywhere on his coat. I mean, it was this cyclical process. And after a year of that, I thought, we've had enough. This is the edge condition of the asphalt. You can see the runnels that would form. When I started poking around, we realized the runoff from the parking lot would scour the edge, it would come down, it would take the soil and sediment with it, it would scour across the asphalt and down into this turf area. So after about a year, we said we've had enough and decided to do something about it. As a landscape architect, we kind of poked around and figured out where the erosion was coming from. And we went in and talked to the principal, talked to our PCA, and decided that we would put a master plan together. So the first step was figuring out what do people want? If they could reinvent their school landscape, what would it look like? So we did surveys with the students, with the parents, we talked to key stakeholders in the community, and we found out what they wanted was a comfortable place that was rich with life. Is that too much to ask for? 420 kids go here every day. Most of them have an adult that accompanies them or younger siblings. We knew we could do better. So we came up with a master plan, and in this plan, we dreamed big. And ironically, that was the theme for that school year, was dream big. This has a lot of elements that the school board said, oh man, you're really thinking too much. You're putting too much in this landscape. A lot of the parents thought, wow, where are we going to get the money? How are we going to do this? A lot of people didn't understand what a bioswale was or a rain garden, so that was all news to them. So it was a big educational component that went along with the project. Well, a group of parents got together and we decided to give the project a name. It's called the WHS, the William Hammerschmidt School Learn and Play Gardens. Designed a logo and we created a mission statement. We wanted to be very clear about what this goal was and that it did respond to what everybody asked for. So that the mission is to transform an ordinary schoolyard into a dynamic center for learning, health and fitness, conservation, and community. We built this project in 3 phases. The first phase is an edible garden, and we received a small grant from the county through their health department, ironically. They're very interested in healthy food, nutrition, growing local food. So with the help of parent volunteers and student volunteers, we built 6 raised beds, some benches, moved mulch, we played in boxes, had some fun when we were out there. So we got the kids involved. We had 120 kids come out on a Saturday morning. We moved mulch, we moved soil. Here you can see a group of them getting their hands dirty. A lot of these kids had never touched soil before. I mean, they didn't know what they were doing. So there was a learning curve that happened when we were out there. We came together, we were excited. You can see these stepping stones. This was one of the small fundraisers that we did where our teacher worked with the students and they could create their own family stepping stones. So each of these kids had their little mark in the edible garden. The first season, we grew pumpkins. We didn't want to overwhelm the teachers. They already have a lot on their plate. Pumpkins and gourds seemed like an easy way to go. So we were seeing some success. The teachers were adapting what we were doing outside, inside the bricks and mortar. Each classroom that first year graphed and studied their pumpkins. So this is a slide that shows seeds in our pumpkin. So every class took one pumpkin, they did some estimating, counting, washing, they roasted the pumpkin seeds, they ate them, they grafted it, and they did this with ridges, they did this with weight. There's ways to involve what's happening outside with what's going on inside. And when you start to look at the curriculum of our elementary schools, middle schools, there's ways to align it, and that's what's really exciting. There was a garden club that was already in place, and this group would meet over lunch in that first year, and they still to this day, they built compostable pots, and they made seed pits that were distributed in each of the classrooms. So each student plants seeds in these pots, and then that's what is planted in the garden. The first season, we found monarch caterpillars and black swallowtail caterpillars. We're starting to see some life. You can see the sunflowers in the back there. This must be the best location in DuPage County to grow sunflowers. These guys, they've got to be 20 feet tall. And the seed heads are about this big. And a little side story, the seeds are kept each year and given from class to class. So the first year was 3rd graders, and then they harvested the seeds in the fall, saved them over the winter, gave them the first graders. First graders did the same thing, gave them to kindergartners. So this will be our 4th growing season, and we don't know who's going to get those sunflower seeds. But the kids are really excited. The second phase was the traditional component of the playground, and we did this through a partnership with the Lombard Park District and the school district. Here you can see some of our happy guys. We concluded that phase with our kids once again spreading mulch. We wanted to get them on the ground working and taking ownership in this landscape. The final phase is WRD designed the construction documents and went through the permitting for it. We had to go out to bid. This went through the school district. And it includes stepping stone, or a a lot of logs, so a lot of natural materials. There's an iconic teepee that's back there. This was a group of Girl Scouts that were using it for their flyover from one level to the next. And so they created a little bird's nest back there and would fly across these logs. They loved it. We added some basketball hoops that were low enough for little kids to actually reach, because we have 5-year-olds at this school. 10 new swings, a drinking fountain. You can see some of the logs. And bike racks. We started some programming called Walk and Roll School Weeks, where we have incentives. Kids love to bike, so we did some bike decorating. And this is the rain garden. So part of the whole concept had to deal with stormwater. How do we fix that lake, that pond that would form? And this is a rain garden that's connected uphill. There's a trench that collects the water that comes off the parking lot. It then goes into this rain garden, which has all native plants. And it's on the edge, so we had a little pushback from the school district who didn't want too many plants and too much maintenance. But it's self-contained, and it brings an element of wildlife. You can also see we added 24 deciduous trees, and each of them are labeled. They have the donor's name and the common and botanical name, so our students are starting to learn their woody plants. And these are the partners. So after that final phase, we had a celebration, and the Conservation Foundation came. A lot of our partners came from DuPage County, the Stormwater Division, the Conservation DuPage Foundation. The 5th grade students wrote and produced a song using the musical instruments that were on site. And here you can see my colleague Jay Womack. He made the kids raise their hand and promise to take care of the plants. And he talked to them about the value of native plants and why they are so important. So to end, I just have a quick anecdote. That last culminating day was really special. I mean, it was 4 years of work, of fundraising. We had to persevere, and we went before park boards and school boards and parent meetings, and we built up enthusiasm within the community for this project. And my hope is that other schools can be inspired by this, and even if it's just a small snippet, it makes a difference. And these kids are impacted by the new landscape that we've been able to create here. So the last day of dedication, my 3 boys were tugging on my arm, Mom, can we go, can we go? And I'm talking to people and kind of wrapping up. And I hear this little guy say, Mrs. Cooper, Mrs. Cooper. And I turn around, and there's this little guy giving me a big, toothy grin. And he said, thank you. And needless to say, my heart melted. I couldn't believe it. He was so excited. But then he said, I have a question for you. And I said, well, what? And he said, how do you tell the difference between a native plant and a weed? I thought, oh boy, we did it. That's a tough one. So with that, thank you for letting me share and talk to you about this.